For mile after mile, stretching across Ukraine, a rippling green sea of wheat. This is why they call it the breadbasket of the world. When Dutch farmer Kees Huizinga first came here to farm 20 years ago, this is what drew him here.
I mean, this is perfect. And it's the famous Ukrainian black soil. I mean, it's the best soil in the world.
70% of what Ukraine's farmers harvest is exported, last year feeding 400 million people around the world. But barely any of it is getting out now, with the country blockaded by Russia, making farmers like Kees increasingly desperate.
And there's still 25 million tons of grain and oilseeds left in Ukraine. That's the third of last year's harvest. So we already have a huge logistical problem. So it's already late. It's already too late. But talking about it like this, it makes me kind of laughing from nervousness, and emotions.
You're anxious?
I'm really anxious. Yeah. I mean, the only option is to get the grain out of Ukraine is through the Black Sea ports. They have to be opened. That's the only option.
There's currently enough grain stuck in Ukraine's silos to feed all the world's least developed nations for a year. The world was already facing a food supply crisis because of COVID-19, climate change and rising fuel prices. But if Ukraine can't get its grain out of these silos and to the international markets, that crisis could become a catastrophe for hundreds of millions of people. On Ukraine's Black Sea coast, its ports stand idle. We gained rare access to the port in Odessa, which should be busy exporting last year's harvest. Nothing is happening here now. This is Ukraine's problem and the rest of the world's. Over here, 250,000 tons of Ukrainian grain in these vast silos, and across the dock here, a vessel that's got 60,000 tons of grain in it that hasn't moved since February. Because until Russia's naval blockade out at sea is lifted, none of this is going anywhere. Massive silos stand full of grain, but with no means of getting it out to sea. The World Food Programme is warning if the blockade isn't lifted, the impact around the world will be devastating.
So there's no question it's going to mean areas of starvation in the world are going to get worse. Pockets of famine will get worse. And we're in a situation where the world's economies are only partially getting better since COVID-19. And this situation is going to tip many countries over the edge.
Vladimir Putin has his heel on the jugular of the world's food supply. If safe passage can't be found through these waters, the chaos and suffering he's brought to Ukraine will also be felt far away from here.